I want you to look at me carefully. Do I look confused to you? Do I look like someone who can't manage her own affairs? Because 6 months ago, my own son stood in a lawyer's office and tried to convince a judge that I was mentally incompetent, that I needed a legal guardian to control my money, that I was too confused, too senile, too old to make my own decisions. The truth is, I wasn't confused at all. I was finally, after 3 long years, thinking clearly for the first time. And what I saw when the fog lifted was devastating. My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm 71 years old. I'm a retired administrative assistant who worked for the same company for 38 years. I raised my son Marcus alone after my husband died when Marcus was only 8. I managed our household budget, paid off our mortgage, saved for retirement, and put Marcus through college, all by myself, without anyone's help. For 3 years, I gave my son Marcus and his wife Jessica everything they asked for. $33,400. That's the exact number. I didn't realize it until I finally sat down and did the math. $33,400. But this story isn't really about the money. It's about what happens when the people you love most in the world see you as nothing more than a wallet with a pulse. It's about the moment you realize you've been so busy trying to buy their love that you forgot you can't actually buy love at all. This is my story. And if you're a parent who has ever felt used, dismissed, or taken for granted by your own children, I want you to know you're not alone, and it's not too late to take your life back. 3 years ago, Marcus called me with news that filled my heart with joy. Take. "Mom," he said, his voice excited in a way I hadn't heard since he was a boy. "Jessica and I are moving back to town. We want to be closer to you." Closer to me. Those 3 words made everything worth it. Every lonely dinner I'd eaten by myself, every holiday I'd spent alone, every birthday where the phone call came late, if it came at all. He wanted to be close to me. What he actually said, but I didn't hear, was, "We need you." Not want, need. There's a difference. I just didn't know it yet. Within a week, they'd moved into an apartment 15 minutes from my house, a nice 2-bedroom place in a good neighborhood. The rent was $1,200. Marcus worked in IT support, making about $45,000 a year. Jessica was between jobs, a phrase I would hear many, many times over the next 3 years. Within 2 weeks they moved in, Marcus came to visit. We had coffee in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made him breakfast every morning of his childhood, where I'd helped him with homework, where I'd held him when he cried about missing his father. "Mom," he said, stirring his coffee without looking at me, "I need to talk to you about something." My heart jumped. Was Jessica pregnant? Were they buying a house? "We're having trouble making the rent this month," he said quickly. "The moving expenses were more than we expected, and Jessica's job search is taking longer than we thought. I hate to ask, but could you help us out? Just this once. Just until we get on our feet." Just this once. That's what he said. Just this once. I wrote the check that afternoon, $1,200. It was money I'd saved for a trip to visit my sister in Florida. But that could wait. My son needed me. For the first time in years, I felt necessary, wanted, important. Just this once lasted 3 years. The next month, there was another reason. Jessica had a medical emergency. Nothing serious, but the copay was high. Could I help with $300? Of course I could. The month after that, Marcus's car broke down. The repair was $850. He'd pay me back, he promised. I told him not to worry about it. He was my son. That's what mothers do. By month 4, I was automatically transferring $500 to their account every month, sometimes more. They never asked me to set up the automatic transfer. I did it myself, because I didn't want them to have to ask. I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. But I never asked myself, why was I the only one who seemed uncomfortable? Why was I the one losing sleep over their finances? Why was I the one eating store-brand everything while they posted photos from restaurants I couldn't afford? They furnished their entire apartment with my money. When I visited, which became less and less frequent, I'd see the couch I'd bought, the dining table, the TV, the expensive coffee maker Jessica needed because she was very particular about her coffee. I bought Jessica's birthday presents, Christmas gifts, anniversary gifts for them. I even paid for their anniversary dinner once, a $200 meal at a steakhouse. They'd posted the photos on Facebook with the caption, "Treating ourselves tonight." Treating themselves with my money. But I told myself it was fine. They were young. They were struggling. I remembered how hard it was when my husband and I were starting out. Though, to be honest, we never had anyone to bail us out. We ate ramen and took second jobs. But times were different now, I told myself. The economy was harder. They needed help. And every time I sent money, I'd get a text back. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." Sometimes a heart emoji. That was it. That was my return on investment. A text and an emoji. But still, when I went to bed at night, I felt good. I felt like a good mother. Like I was doing what mothers are supposed to do. Sacrifice for their children. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't sacrificing for their survival. I was subsidizing their lifestyle. There's a difference. A big difference. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was at the grocery store trying to decide if I could afford the good coffee or if I should get the store brand again. My phone rang. Marcus. "Hey, Mom," and I could hear Jessica laughing in the background. "Quick question. When are you free in the next few weeks?" My heart leapt. They wanted to spend time with me. Finally, it had been almost 2 months since I'd seen them in person, though I'd sent $1,100 that month because their electricity bill was higher than expected. "I'm free almost any time, honey," I said, probably too eagerly. "What did you have in mind?" "Oh, we were just wondering about your schedule," he said vaguely. "We're planning something and wanted to make sure you are available." I spent the next week imagining what it could be. A surprise party for me? No, my birthday wasn't for months. Maybe they wanted to take me to dinner. Maybe Jessica was finally pregnant and they were going to tell me in person. The following Monday, I saw the photos on Facebook. I was scrolling through my feed, something I rarely did, but I'd been hoping to see pictures of Marcus and Jessica since they never sent me any directly. And there they were. Wedding photos. Marcus in a sharp gray suit I'd never seen. Jessica in a beautiful white dress holding a bouquet of roses. They were standing in front of a small chapel, surrounded by about 30 people. Jessica's parents, front and center. Her sisters, her best friends. Marcus's cousin David, who he hadn't spoken to in years. His college roommate who lived 3 states away. 30 people, but not me. I sat down right there in the middle of my living room, still holding my phone.
I read the caption, "Surprise, we did it. Best day ever with our favorite people." Our favorite people. I scrolled through the comments. 78 comments. People congratulating them. Jessica's mom, so proud of my baby girl. Marcus's old boss. Congrats, Marcus. Beautiful ceremony. I hadn't even known they were engaged. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I called Marcus immediately. It rang 4 times, and then he answered, and I could still hear celebration in the background. "Hey, Mom," he said casually, too casually, like I'd called to ask about the weather. "Marcus," I said, and my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "I just saw photos on Facebook. You got married?"
"Marcus," I said, and my voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. "I just saw photos on Facebook. You got married?" "Oh, yeah," he said, and I swear to God, I could hear him smiling. It was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. We decided to keep it really small and intimate. Small and intimate. 30 people was small and intimate. But the woman who'd been paying their rent for 3 years, she didn't make the cut. Why? I couldn't finish the sentence. Why wasn't I invited? Why didn't you tell me? Why did I have to find out on Facebook like a stranger? "Mom, don't make this into a thing," he said, and now there was irritation in his voice. "It wasn't personal. We just wanted it to be low-key, no pressure. Just people who, you know." "People who what, Marcus?" Silence. Terrible, damning silence. Then I heard Jessica's voice in the background. "Is that your mom? Tell her we'll do something with her later. We have to get to the reception." The reception, I also wasn't invited to. "Mom, I gotta go," Marcus said quickly. "We'll talk later, okay? Love you." He hung up before I could respond. I sat in my living room until it got dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, looking at those photos on my phone over and over, zooming in. Looking at the faces of all those people who were more important to my son than I was. The woman who raised him. The woman who worked 2 jobs when his father died so he could stay in his same school with his same friends. The woman who took on credit card debt to pay for his college. The woman who had given him $33,400 over the past 3 years. I wasn't a favorite person. I wasn't even an afterthought. I was just forgotten. Or worse, deliberately excluded. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I ugly cried. The kind of crying where you can't breathe and you make horrible noises and you don't care because there's no one there to hear you anyway. I cried for the relationship I thought we had, for the son I remembered, the little boy who'd held my hand and told me I was the best mommy in the world. I cried for the fool I'd been, thinking money could build a bridge between us, when really it was just building a wall. But somewhere around midnight, something shifted. The sadness started to harden into something else, something colder. Anger. Real, bone-deep anger. And for the first time in 3 years, I started asking myself the questions I should have asked all along. What am I actually getting out of this relationship? When was the last time Marcus called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time they invited me to anything? When was the last time I felt like a mother instead of like an ATM? I couldn't remember. For 1 week after that wedding, I didn't hear from Marcus or Jessica. Not a word. No explanation. No apology. Nothing. Then, 8 days after I found out about the wedding on Facebook, my phone rang. Jessica. I almost didn't answer. My finger hovered over the decline button, but old habits are hard to break. I answered. Victoria! Her voice was bright, cheerful, like nothing had happened. How are you? How was I? How was I? I've been better, Jessica, I said flatly. Oh, she paused, and I could practically hear her deciding whether to address the wedding or pretend it never happened. She chose option B. Well, I'm calling because we have a little situation. The rent is due tomorrow, and Marcus's paycheck was shorter than expected. You forgot to make the transfer this month. I forgot. As if it was my responsibility, as if I was on their payroll and had neglected my duties. Jessica, I said slowly, I didn't forget anything. I chose not to send money this month. The silence on the other end was profound. I don't understand, she said finally. You always help us with rent. Yes, I said. I always have for 3 years, every single month, plus extra for emergencies, furniture, gifts, dinners, medical bills, car repairs. Do you know how much I've given you? Well, we never asked you to. $33,400, Jessica. I did the math. That's how much of my retirement savings I've spent keeping you and Marcus afloat. Another silence, longer this time. We're very grateful, she said, but her voice had an edge now. But Victoria, that was your choice. We never forced you to help us. You're right, I said, and I felt something snap inside me. Something that had been stretched too thin for too long. It was my choice. And now I'm making a different choice. What does that mean? Jessica's voice rose to match mine. It means I'm not sending money anymore. It means you and Marcus are adults with jobs, and you're going to have to figure out your own finances. Like adults do. You can't just cut us off. Jessica's voice rose to match mine. We've made commitments based on your support. We have bills. We've made financial decisions because we knew we could count on you. You knew you could count on my money, I corrected her. There's a difference. This is because of the wedding, isn't it? You're punishing us because we didn't invite you to one event. That's so manipulative, Victoria. That's emotional blackmail. Jessica, you excluded me from the most important day of my son's life, after I'd been paying your bills for 3 years. I didn't even know you were engaged. I found out you got married by seeing photos on Facebook. And you think I'm being manipulative? It wasn't about you, she shot back. Everything isn't about you. We wanted a private ceremony. We didn't want any pressure or drama. We wanted it to be about us. You invited 30 people, I said quietly. Your parents, your sisters, Marcus's cousin who he hasn't seen in 5 years, but not his mother. The only drama you wanted to avoid was me. Look, Jessica, and she said it with a coldness now that she sounded like a businesswoman. I think you're going through something. Maybe the loneliness is getting to you. Maybe you need to talk to someone. But you can't take out your personal issues on us. We've done nothing wrong. You've done nothing wrong, I repeated slowly. Tell me, Jessica, when was the last time you or Marcus called me just to see how I was doing? Not to ask for money, just to talk. Silence. When was the last time you invited me to dinner or came to visit me without needing something? More silence. When was the last time either of you said, "Thank you," for anything more specific than, "Thanks, Mom," in a text message? "We tell you thank you all the time," she protested, but her voice was defensive now. "No, you don't. You acknowledge the transaction. Thanks for the money. But you never thank me for the sacrifice. You never ask what I gave up to give you that money. You never wonder if maybe I needed it for myself? If you couldn't afford it, you should have said something." "I could afford it. I just finally asked myself if you deserved it." I heard her gasp on the other end. I'd shocked her. "Good." "How dare you?" she started. "I have to go, Jessica," I said, suddenly exhausted. "You and Marcus need to figure out the rent on your own. You're going to have to budget. Maybe skip the dinners out. Maybe Jessica will need to take that job she's overqualified for. But you're going to have to do it without me. Marcus is going to call you," she said, and it sounded like a threat. "And when he does, you're going to regret this. We're his family. I'm his wife. You're just his mother. And when you're old and sick and need someone to take care of you, you're going to wish you'd been nicer to us." "Jessica," I said, "I'm already old, and I already need people to care about me, and you don't. So I have nothing to lose." I hung up, and then I turned my phone off completely. 3 days of silence. Then the doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw 3 cars in my driveway. Marcus's car, Jessica's car, and a silver BMW I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a casual visit. I opened the door and immediately knew I'd made a mistake. I should have kept it locked, because there was Marcus, looking angry and desperate. There was Jessica, her arms crossed, her face hard. And there was a man in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. "Mom, we need to talk." Marcus pushed past me into my own house. "Excuse me?" But they were already inside. All 3 of them, the stranger included. "Mrs. Sterling," the man said, extending his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Robert Pearson. I'm a family law attorney. Marcus and Jessica have asked me to speak with you about some concerns they have." I didn't shake his hand. "Get out of my house." "Mom, please," Marcus said, and he actually looked scared. Not worried about me, scared for himself. "Your behavior has been really erratic lately."
Erratic? Cutting us off financially with no warning, not answering your phone, isolating yourself. These are signs of cognitive decline, Victoria. We've been reading about it. Cognitive decline. Is that what you call it when someone stops letting you take advantage of them? Mr. Pearson stepped forward, his briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Sterling, I understand you're feeling defensive. That's a common response. But Marcus and Jessica have documented several concerning behaviors: sudden financial decisions, memory issues, confusion about recent events." "I'm not confused," I said, my voice rising. "I'm completely clear. For the first time in 3 years." "Mom," Marcus said, and now he was using that soft, gentle voice people use with children or the mentally ill. "We found out you withdrew $20,000 from your savings account last week. What did you spend it on? Can you even remember?" I could remember perfectly. I'd used $1,500 to pay off the last of my credit card debt I'd accumulated partly because I'd been supporting them. The other $500 I deposited into a new account at a different bank, an account they knew nothing about. "That's my money," I said. "I can spend it however I want." "Not if you're not mentally competent to make those decisions," Mr. Pearson said smoothly. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Sterling, we've prepared some documents, a power of attorney that would allow Marcus to help manage your finances, just temporarily until we can get you evaluated by a professional." He laid the papers on my coffee table, in my house, that I paid for myself. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Mom, please." Marcus sat down on my couch, the couch I'd bought for his apartment first, before I bought myself a new one. "We're trying to help you. Dad would want me to take care of you." Don't you dare bring your father into this. Your father who worked himself to death to give you a good life. Your father who would be ashamed of what you're doing right now. But I didn't say that. I just stood there, shaking with rage and hurt. Jessica pulled out her phone. "We have evidence," she said. "Text messages where you seem confused about dates. Times when you've repeated yourself. You told us the same story about your neighbor 3 times last month. Because you weren't listening the first 2 times. You never listen unless I'm talking about sending money." "This emotional volatility is another sign," Mr. Pearson said, making a note on his legal pad. "Mrs. Strawling, I'm going to be honest with you. If you don't cooperate, Marcus and Jessica have the option of petitioning the court for emergency guardianship. A judge will evaluate your mental state, and given the concerning patterns they've documented..." "Documented?" I looked at Marcus. "You've been documenting me? Building a case against me?" He had the grace to look ashamed. For about 2 seconds. Then Jessica put her hand on his shoulder, reinforcing him, and his face hardened again. "We have to protect you from yourself, Mom." "No," I said. "You have to protect your income stream. That's what this is about. You're afraid I'm going to spend your inheritance, money that you've already been spending for 3 years. "That's not fair," Marcus started. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? I raised you alone. I worked 2 jobs. I sacrificed everything. And the moment I stop paying your bills, you try to have me declared incompetent? You bring a lawyer to my house, and try to take control of my money?" Mr. Pearson closed his briefcase with a click. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm going to give you my card. I strongly suggest you think about what's being offered here. Because if we have to go to court, it's going to be much more unpleasant for everyone involved. Judges take elder welfare very seriously." "I'm not incompetent," I said. "I'm done being used." "We'll see what a doctor says," Jessica said coldly. "We'll see what a judge says, because if you were thinking clearly, you'd realize we're trying to help you. But you're not thinking clearly, and that's the problem." They left. All 3 of them. But not before Mr. Pearson left his business card on my table with a handwritten note. "Please reconsider. We can resolve this amicably." Amicably? As if there was anything amicable about your own child trying to take legal control of your life? After they left, I sat down in my living room, my house, my furniture, my life, and I realized something terrifying. They might actually be able to do this. I'd heard stories about families taking advantage of elderly parents, using the legal system to gain control of their assets. It happened all the time. And I was 71 years old. I lived alone. I had no one to vouch for me except myself. For about 10 minutes, I felt pure terror. What if a judge sided with them? What if I really did lose control of my own life? But then, and I'll never forget this moment, I looked at the business card Mr. Pearson had left, and I noticed something. The firm's name, Pearson and Associates. Not a big prestigious firm. Associates, plural. But it was just his name on the card. This wasn't a high-powered attorney. This was probably some guy Marcus had found online who took cases like this for a quick fee. Marcus and Jessica couldn't even afford rent. They definitely couldn't afford a real legal battle. They were bluffing. It was one last manipulation, one last attempt to scare me into compliance. And it almost worked. Almost, but not quite. The next morning, I did something I should have done years ago. I got my own lawyer. His name was James Whitfield. He'd been a friend of my late husband's. He'd handled our wills 20 years ago. And when I called him and explained everything, he told me to come in immediately. "Victoria," he said after I'd told him everything, "what your son is trying to do is called elder financial abuse, and it's a crime, a serious one." He pulled up the legal code on his computer and showed me. Attempting to gain control of an elderly person's finances through coercion or manipulation could result in criminal charges, civil penalties, restraining orders.
But they're my son and daughter-in-law. I don't want to put them in jail. Victoria, James looked at me with kind but firm eyes. They are trying to take away your autonomy, your freedom, your right to make decisions about your own life. That is not love. That is abuse. He was right. I knew he was right. But it still hurt to hear it said out loud. We spent 3 hours going through everything. Every bank transfer, every gift, every text message asking for money. James had me forward everything to him. This is good documentation, very good. It shows a pattern of financial dependence and manipulation. And now that you've cut them off, they're escalating. That's textbook predatory behavior. He drafted a letter to Mr. Pearson. It was polite, but firm. It stated that I was of sound mind, that I had legal representation, that any attempt to pursue guardianship would be vigorously contested and could result in counterclaims of elder financial abuse. I'm also going to recommend you get a full medical evaluation, not because I think there's anything wrong with you, but because we want documentation that you're completely competent. When this goes to court, and it might, I want to be able to submit a doctor's report showing you're in perfect mental health. I went to my doctor the next day. Dr. Ramirez, who'd been my physician for 15 years. I explained the situation, and her face darkened with anger. "They tried to claim you're incompetent?" said Dr. Ramirez. "Victoria, you're one of the sharpest patients I have. You remember every medication, every appointment. You ask intelligent questions about your health. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function." She ran every test imaginable. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, even had me draw clocks and remember lists of words. I passed everything easily. "I'm writing a letter for your attorney," Dr. Ramirez said. "And Victoria, I'm also noting in your medical record that there were clear signs of financial elder abuse and emotional manipulation by family members. That's part of your medical history now. It's documented." For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt hope. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. His voice sounded different. Smaller. "Mom, we got a letter from your lawyer." "Yes," I said simply. "Mom, we weren't really going to take you to court. We were just worried about you." "No, Marcus, you were worried about losing access to my money. There's a difference." "That's not fair." "Marcus, I had a full medical evaluation. I took every cognitive test available. I passed them all with perfect scores. My doctor wrote a letter stating I'm in excellent mental health, so if you want to take me to court and claim I'm incompetent, go ahead. But you should know that my lawyer is prepared to file counter charges for elder financial abuse. He has 3 years of documentation showing how much money I gave you and how you tried to manipulate me when I stopped. Silence. Mom, I also changed my will. You're no longer the primary beneficiary. I've set up a trust that will go to charity when I die. You won't see a penny. You can't do that, he said, but his voice was shaking. I can, Marcus. It's my money. It was always my money. Not yours, mine. After everything he couldn't finish. After what? Excluded me from your wedding? Tried to have me declared incompetent? Treated me like an ATM for 3 years? Yes, after all that. I heard Jessica in the background, her voice sharp. Tell her she's going to die alone. Marcus repeated it like a parrot. Mom, if you do this, you're going to end up alone. No one will take care of you when you need it. Marcus, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. I am already alone. I've been alone for 3 years. You weren't visiting me because you loved me. You were visiting your bank. And now that the bank is closed, you're showing me exactly how much I mean to you, which is nothing. That's not true. When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you asked about my life, my health, my feelings? When was the last time you said you loved me and meant it instead of saying it as a sign-off after asking for money? Silence. You weren't my son anymore, Marcus. You were my dependent. And I finally realized that I can't make you love me. I can't buy your affection. All I was doing was teaching you that I have no value beyond my checkbook. I love you. I will always love you. You're my son. But I can't do this anymore. I can't fund your life while you treat me like I'm disposable. I can't keep breaking my own heart, hoping that one day you'll wake up and remember that I'm your mother. Mom, please. If you ever want a real relationship with me, one based on love, not money, my door's open. But Marcus, you have to want me. Not my wallet, me. I hung up. And this time, I didn't cry. I felt something else. Something that felt almost like peace. That was 8 months ago. For the first 3 months, I heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no emails. Marcus and Jessica disappeared from my life as completely as if they'd never existed. I won't lie, it was hard. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I'd done the right thing, wondering if I'd destroyed my relationship with my only child over money, wondering if I'd be alone for the rest of my life. But then something happened that I didn't expect. I started living again. With that $500 I wasn't sending to Marcus every month, I joined a gym. Not a fancy one, just the community center near my house. And I met people. Other women my age. We started having coffee after our water aerobics class. One of them, Margaret, became a real friend. She'd gone through something similar with her daughter. We talked for hours about the guilt, the pain, the confusion of loving someone who treats you like a resource instead of a person. You know what I learned? Margaret told me one day. We teach people how to treat us. When we accept unacceptable behavior, we're telling them it's okay. You didn't reject your son. You just stopped accepting rejection from him. I joined a book club. I volunteered at the local library, helping seniors learn to use computers. I took that trip to Florida to visit my sister, the trip I'd postponed 3 years ago to pay Marcus's rent. I lived on my budget, my actual budget, and discovered I could not only survive, but thrive on what I had. Without the constant drain of supporting 2 other adults, I had enough. More than enough. And then, 6 months after our last conversation, I got a letter. Not a text, not an email, a handwritten letter. It was from Marcus. "Dear Mom," it began. "I don't know if you'll even read this." He apologized. Really apologized. Not the fake, "I'm sorry you feel that way" apology, but "I'm sorry for what I did." He wrote that he and Jessica had separated, that living without my financial support had put enormous stress on their marriage, that Jessica had blamed him for ruining their relationship with me and cutting off their income, that they'd fought constantly about money they always taken for granted would be there. He wrote that he'd gotten a better job, that he was living with a roommate now and paying his own bills, that it was hard, but he was learning to manage. And then he wrote something that made me cry. "Mom, I didn't realize until you were gone how much I'd stopped seeing you as a person. You were just always there, always helping, always saying yes. I never had to think about you as someone with your own needs, your own life, your own feelings. You were just Mom, the one who fixes things, the one with money. And I'm so ashamed of who I became, of who I let myself become." He continued, "I've been in therapy for 3 months. My therapist asked me when the last time you told me about something good in my life, not because I needed something, but just to share. I couldn't remember. She asked me when the last time I asked about your life, your interests, your dreams. I couldn't answer that either. She asked me if I'd ever thanked you, really thanked you for raising me alone after Dad died, for putting me through college, for everything you sacrificed. And I realized I hadn't. Not once. Not really. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm trying to become the son you deserve to have had, not the one you got. I'm learning to stand on my own 2 feet, to take responsibility, to understand that love isn't about what someone can do for you, it's about who they are and how much you value them." At the end of the letter, he wrote, "I'd like to see you sometime, not to ask for anything, not to explain or make excuses, just to see you, to have coffee and talk about your life, not mine, to listen, to be your son again, not your dependent, but only if you're ready, only if you want to. I understand if you don't." I didn't respond immediately. I kept that letter on my kitchen table for 2 weeks, reading it over and over, trying to decide if it was real, if he really meant it, or if this was just another manipulation, a longer, more elaborate one. I talked to Margaret about it. I talked to my sister Diana. I even talked to Dr. Ramirez at my next appointment. Everyone said the same thing. Only you can decide if you want to give him another chance. But if you do, it has to be on your terms, not his, not what's convenient for him, your terms. So I wrote back. I told him I appreciated the letter, that I was glad he was getting help and learning to manage his own life, that I was proud he was standing on his own feet. And then I told him the truth. Marcus, I love you. I will always love you. But I can't go back to being the person I was, the person who said yes to everything because I was afraid of losing you. Because I did lose you anyway, or maybe I never really had you in the way I thought I did. If we're going to rebuild our relationship, it has to be a real one, where we both show up as whole people, where you value me for who I am, not what I can provide, where I can say no without feeling like I'm failing as a mother. I continued. I'm willing to have coffee with you, but I need you to understand some boundaries first. We will not discuss money, not mine, not yours, not anyone's. We will not discuss your financial situation. We will not discuss what I can or cannot do to help you. If you come into financial trouble, you will handle it yourself, like the adult you are. And we will take this slowly. One coffee, then maybe another, then maybe a dinner. But I'm not opening my heart fully until I can trust that you want a relationship with me, not a relationship with my wallet. I sent the letter, and then I waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. Marcus. Mom, he said, and his voice was thick with emotion. I got your letter. And I understand. I agree to everything. Your boundaries are fair, more than fair. Can we have that coffee? We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses, neutral territory, public place. I got there first. I was so nervous my hands were shaking. What if he didn't show up? What if he did show up, but it was a disaster? What if we had nothing to talk about anymore? But then he walked in, and my heart broke a little bit because he looked different, thinner, older, tired. He saw me and walked over, and for a moment we just looked at each other.
Hi, Mom, he said quietly. Hi, Marcus. He didn't hug me. I think he understood that we weren't there yet. Instead, he sat down and we ordered coffee, and then there was this awkward silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. Tell me about Florida. Your letter mentioned you finally took that trip to see Aunt Diana. He remembered. He actually remembered that I'd wanted to take that trip. So I told him about visiting Diana, about the beach, about the little art gallery we'd found, about the pelicans and the sunset and the Cuban restaurant where Diana and I had laughed until we cried. And he listened, really listened, asked questions, smiled at the right parts. Then I asked him about his therapy, his new job, his life. And he told me, honestly, without sugarcoating, without asking for help, just sharing. We talked for 2 hours about everything except money, about his therapy revelations, about my book club, about memories from when he was little, good memories, when things were simpler. When we left, he said, Thank you for giving me this chance, Mom. I know I don't deserve it. You're my son, I said. I'll always give you chances. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was. I've changed. I've grown. I've learned to value myself, and I can't go back. I don't want you to go back, he said. That version of you were disappearing, becoming smaller. I see that now. This version of you, the one with boundaries, with her own life, with friends and trips and book clubs, this is the mom I should have had all along, the one who taught me what self-respect looks like. We've had coffee 6 more times since then. Last month, I invited him to my house for dinner. He brought flowers, not expensive ones, just grocery store daisies, but they were his idea, his money, his effort. We're not back to normal. I don't know if we ever will be. There's still hurt there, still a wariness on both sides, still moments where I catch myself wondering if it's real or if I'm being fooled again. But here's what I know. I'm not funding his life anymore, and he's not asking me to. He pays his own rent, buys his own groceries, manages his own problems. And when we see each other now, it's because we want to see each other, not because he needs something. It's not the relationship I dreamed of when he was born. When I imagined his future, I never imagined this much pain, this much distance that had to be crossed to get back to something real. But it's honest, and maybe that's worth more than the fantasy I'd been clinging to. I want to talk directly to anyone watching this who sees themselves in my story, because I know you're out there. I've gotten messages from hundreds of you, parents who are funding their adult children's lives while wondering why they feel so empty, why their generosity never seems to be enough, why their love feels so one-sided. First, you are not alone. Elder financial abuse by adult children is one of the fastest growing forms of family abuse in this country. It happens to rich families and poor families, educated people and uneducated people. It doesn't discriminate, and it thrives on one thing: shame. You're ashamed to admit it's happening because they're your children, and you think you're supposed to support them forever. But here's the truth. Supporting your adult children financially when they're capable of supporting themselves isn't helping them. It's enabling them. It's teaching them that they don't have to be responsible because someone will always bail them out. And it's teaching them that your value is in your wallet, not in who you are. Second, you cannot buy love. You cannot buy respect. You cannot buy a relationship. All you can do is subsidize the illusion of one. And that illusion costs everything: your retirement, your peace, your self-respect. Every dollar I sent Marcus, I was secretly hoping it would translate into love, into appreciation, into him calling more often or visiting more or remembering my birthday without being reminded. But money doesn't convert into affection. It just converts into expectation. Saying no doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you an honest one. Your children need to learn that the world has limits,
that resources are finite, that actions have consequences. If you protect them from all of that, you're not preparing them for life, you're disabling them. The kindest thing I ever did for Marcus was cut him off, because it forced him to grow up, to stand on his own, to develop skills he never needed as long as I was his safety net. Was it hard for him? Yes. Did he struggle? Yes. But he survived. And more than that, he grew.
Fourth, you deserve a life too. This is the one that took me longest to learn. I had spent so many years thinking that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything, that my needs didn't matter, that I should be grateful they even talked to me. But I'm a person, a whole person with needs and dreams and value beyond what I can provide to others. And the relationships that matter, the real ones, recognize that. They don't demand that you shrink yourself to make room for them. Margaret, my friend from the gym, told me something I'll never forget. The relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life. For years, I treated myself like I didn't matter. So Marcus learned to treat me that way too. When I finally started treating myself like I mattered, like I had value, like I deserved respect, it gave Marcus the opportunity to treat me better. He could have chosen not to take that opportunity, and that would have been his loss, not mine. Fifth, and this is important, if they only love you for what you can do for them, they don't actually love you. They love the service you provide. And you deserve more than that. You deserve to be loved for who you are, flaws and all, money or no money, useful or not useful. The people who truly love you will love you on your worst day, when you have nothing to give, when you're difficult and complicated and human. Everyone else is just using you. I'm 71 years old. I don't know how many years I have left. 10, 20, 5? Nobody knows. But what I do know is this. I'm not spending my remaining years trying to buy love from people who should give it freely. I'm not spending my remaining years making myself smaller so others can be comfortable. I'm not spending my remaining years as an ATM with feelings. I'm spending them with people who value me. With Margaret and the book club ladies, and my sister Diana, and my volunteer friends at the library. With people who call to ask how I'm doing, who listen when I talk, who remember what matters to me. And maybe, if we keep doing the work, I'll spend them with Marcus too. But a new Marcus. One who sees me as a person, not a resource. One who shows up because he wants to, not because he needs to. 8 months ago, I thought I was losing my son. But what I actually lost was a transaction disguised as a relationship. And what I gained was myself, my dignity, my peace, my life. I still have days where I wonder if I did the right thing. Days where I miss the fantasy of who I wanted Marcus to be. Days where loneliness creeps in and I think maybe having a fake relationship is better than having no relationship. But then I remember, I'm not alone. I'm finally in good company. My own. If you're in a situation like I was, if you're funding your adult child's life while they treat you as disposable, I want you to know that you have options, you have power, you have rights. Document everything, every transfer, every request, every promise to pay you back that never materialized. Get legal advice from an elder law attorney who specializes in family financial abuse. Get a medical evaluation to document your mental competency if anyone is questioning it. Protect yourself. And then make the hard choice. The choice to value yourself as much as you've been valuing them. The choice to say, I love you, but I love myself too, and I'm not doing this anymore. It will be hard. It might be the hardest thing you ever do. There will be guilt and grief and second-guessing and sleepless nights. There will be people who tell you you're wrong, you're selfish, you're a bad parent. But you'll also have something you haven't had in a long time. Yourself. Your peace, your dignity, your freedom. And that, I promise you, is worth more than all the money in the world. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you in any way, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have your own story, whether you're still in the middle of it or you found your way out, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. We're stronger together than we are alone. I'm Victoria Sterling, and I'm finally free.